Jokes about mad cow disease. Two cows in the barn said, one said, "What do you think of that mad cow disease?" And the other one says, "I'm not concerned, I'm a duck."
Simon Taylor, welcome to Comedy Legends with Bevo.
Thanks for having me, Bevo.
Now you're in town at the Adelaide Fringe at the moment doing a show called Epic, and it's going to be going to the Gold Coast, Melbourne Comedy Festival. Tell us about the show and what it's all about.
Well, I set myself a challenge this year not to mention the pandemic at all in the show. So it's actually about travel stories, pretty much from, all my times in America, and I've turned it into one big epic story. I like to think it's epic. I start with the poster title and then I go, right, now I've got to make this show epic, try to live up to that expectation. So it's just travel stories of me being an idiot and being a fish out of water.
So I guess you can't give too much away because you don't want the viewers or listeners.
I'll give it all away. I don't mind.
Give us a little bit of a sneak preview.
Well, essentially, I was in Albuquerque. I was in like the Wild West historically in America, and I got mugged there. And well, I kind of got conned. I got like sort of tricked into giving someone money, and then I was mugged, and then I had to get back home urgently, and I couldn't get a flight out, and it just ended up being this crazy struggle of trying to get home and going through the wildest parts of the southern states of America.
That sounds pretty unreal.
It was scary, mainly scary, Bevo.
Yeah, scary, but certainly I'm glad obviously you can tell the tale exactly.
Oh, yeah, I live to tell the tale.
Yeah, and you're smiling as well, so that's most important.
Because I got out alive.
Yeah, and actually you mentioned America as well. You've got an American partner, Lucy.
Yep.
Where'd that relationship come about? And date one, where was it?
In a gallery, art gallery, because I saw, all right, here's my move.
Yeah.
You always go through their photos on we met on Bumble, right? So you go through the photos and you have a look, and I saw she was an artist. So I'm like, all right, art gallery. And we,
Smooth.
Yeah, so yes. Because you want to do something specific to them. And so we went to National Gallery of Victoria, and we sat down in front of this big Burke and Wills painting, and we chatted there. That's where we had our first big convo. And then on our second anniversary, we went back to the art gallery, and that's where I proposed to her. I had a little plaque made out, and I had it put on the wall, and it said, "Proposal to Lucy by Simon Taylor, ring on finger 2021."
Well,
and so we were just like walking by and like, "Oh, this is where we first chatted." And then I'm like, "Oh, what's that?" And she looked at the plaque and was like, "Oh my God." I proposed to her there.
That is two ticks in the box there. Very smooth for your first date, and the proposal, very smooth,
Yeah, and I always teased her. I said, "Why don't you propose to me? You should propose to me." And she's like, "Oh, well, it's traditionally the man." I'm like, "So? We're not traditional." And after I proposed to her about 5 months later, she proposed back because I'd always teased her about it. So she created a scavenger hunt around Melbourne. I had no idea. We were just solving all these clues, and then she eventually, got down on one knee and proposed to me, and it was nice. So all that teasing paid off. I got to experience it. So it was really nice.
And speaking of America, 24 years old, young lad, and you were doing incredible things over there. You're actually a writer for Jay Leno. That's obviously one of the biggest shows around the world in terms of late night shows. What an experience, and what sort of writing were you doing there?
It was crazy. I went over just to see a friend and do some gigs, and a producer from The Tonight Show saw me do stand-up and said, "Oh, you're funny, you should come to The Tonight Show, come meet Jay." And I just thought, oh, that's nice, I get to see the show. And I didn't even realize that I would meet Jay properly until after the show. And when I met him, I just kind of made him laugh, and he said, "Oh, okay, you're funny, send some jokes in." So I wrote one-liner jokes for him and sent them in, and the next day I had a contract. So it was pretty surreal. And I just basically every day for 2 years read the news and sent in jokes. And that was my life for 2 years.
That's incredible. And what was Jay Leno like as a bloke?
He's like a mechanic. He's just like a friendly, down-to-earth guy. He's, incredibly nice, incredibly supportive, especially when the show ended. He just told all the staff, and he told me directly, he's like, "If you need anything, let me know." And he wrote me like a letter for my visa application. and signed that. I wrote a book and he gave me a quote for the back of the book. So he's just incredibly giving and a really nice guy, and yeah, just feels like he doesn't feel Hollywood or showbiz. He just feels like, oh, he could be a mechanic, he could be, some guy who owns a restaurant, he just seems like a genuinely, working class guy.
And you still keep in touch, or?
Yeah. When I need something, I reach out like, hey, can you give me a quote? But I just generally, hear from him over email very occasionally. Yeah.
That's a wonderful story. And another wonderful story, speaking of writing, you've also been doing some writing for a Netflix show. Now, let me get this correct, Magic for Humans?
Magic for Humans on
Yeah,
Netflix,
tell us more about that and your role there.
Well, the first night that I was in Los Angeles when that producer saw me, I was doing a show for a magician. It was his lineup show. He was hosting it and I got a spot on it. So all the people I met that night are still my friends. So after writing for The Tonight Show, he kind of, picked me up and said, hey, do you want more writing work? And so I worked on the magic show. So I wrote a lot of jokes for it, but I did magic for a little while when I was 20, 21, 22, just quite enjoyed it. I was doing a lot of different styles of performance. I did improv, did spoken word poetry, I was singing and things like that. I was just writing in all these different mediums because I was really enjoying performing, really. And then when stand-up came along, I'm like, oh, this is the most fun. I'll just stick with this. So when Magic for Humans came about, I had that background in magic that I could kind of draw on. So I kind of merged both worlds of my comedy writing, magic writing, and was able to come up with, what we were really proud of, quite a funny magic show. At no point is the host really like, okay, let's be serious. This is where we're going to blow your mind. We were actually taking the piss a lot, which is so enjoyable when you can just shake the seriousness out of something. The Copperfield or the Chris Angel or the David Blaine are so mysterious, and I'm going to show you something that is going to change your life. Like we get to throw that out and just be idiots with magic, and that was super fun.
I want to take you back to your very first show doing stand-up. What was that experience like?
First ever stand-up gig, I think, was at the Comics Lounge in Melbourne, and it was just death. Like I just died so hard. I think I'd watched a lot of comedians online and they just appeared to be all energy. Like if you came out with lots of energy and you acted things out, it'd be super funny. But I didn't realize there are jokes. There's a structure to a joke. There's a setup and a punchline, and I didn't get that. So I came on stage saying lots of things loudly with no actual substance to the joke or the bit. So I just flat out died, and I came off stage thinking, oh no, I need to do that again to get it right. And I think that's when I worked out I would be a stand-up, because if I had a good gig, I'd want to do it again. If I had a bad gig, I needed to fix it, so I wanted to do it again. So irrespective of how well the set went, I needed to get back on stage. And that's kind of how I kind of treat it now well, I got another gig ahead of me. I'll just do another one. And that's how you kind of look back and go, oh my goodness, I've been doing this for 12 years now.
In terms of hecklers though, what's been some of the best lines you've heard?
There's two kind of hecklers. There's either like middle-aged men who are kind of alpha males and they think they're helping, and they'll yell something out like, yeah, my missus said that, or something like dumb. And one guy was here in Adelaide, actually. He said, you're crap, or I could do that better. And I said, what's your name? And he said, Kent. I said, it sounds super close to what I just thought you were. And so that was kind of like a nice moment that shut him up. But generally with hecklers, they're super drunk, and a heckler put down doesn't help because they just think they're part of the show. So they'll yell out and you shut them down, with a great line, and then they'll go, yeah, that's great. They're not capable. They don't have the capacity to be embarrassed anymore. They're too drunk. They're not aware that they're ruining the show for other people. So there gets to a certain level of drunkenness where you're not actually having a back and forth with them. They're just in their own world, and it's kind of better to try encourage them to leave. So the last time I had that, though, the group of friends that they were with kind of guided them out and got them out. So that was kind of nice. That was good teamwork.
Because it would have been embarrassing for them as well.
For their friends, yeah. They were super embarrassed. So they just said, oh, we're so sorry. And they got their friend a cab, and which is actually a very responsible thing to do. So I think we've had enough, alcohol education in Australia to just send your mates home when they've had enough.
Yeah.
So that was really heartening to see.
Yeah, well said. And in terms of the passion for comedy, where did it come from originally, Simon? Like, was there someone on TV that you had growing up as an idol, or where did you really get that interest to want to be a stand-up comedian?
Growing up, I always wanted to be a performer. Like, my dad told me I used to dress up as a clown a lot. Want to be a silly little slapstick clown. And so I was always drawn to that. I did drama at school and all that sort of stuff. I think growing up, I had like this CD of an Irish comedian, and he just told like pub jokes, like, oh, Paddy went down to the construction site and asked the foreman for a job, and the foreman said, I don't have enough work for my own men. And Paddy said, well, that's fine. I won't be doing much. And just dumb punchline-y, silly punchline jokes like that. And I used to listen to those CDs and thought they were super funny. But they were just all like, jokes about mad cow disease. 2 cows in the barn said, one said, what do you think of that mad cow disease? And the other one says, I'm not concerned, I'm a duck. Dumb jokes like that, right? Silly jokes like that. That was what I thought stand-up was, just silly jokes. But then I saw Rod Quantock. Now, he was a political comedian, and he would do jokes about politicians, about the economy, about social issues. I was about 13, and it wasn't until then I realized, oh, comedy can be about something with substance. So when I started doing stand-up, I actually was drawn to that style of talking about things that I thought were important, about social issues, about the big issues that I thought were really important. So he was a big inspiration. You don't see him on TV much anymore, but he used to be the Captain Snooze guy.
Oh.
Rod Quantock, that was his big TV gig. But his stand-up is incredible and just really cutting and political. And so he was a big inspiration for sure. And Fiona O'Loughlin was another one because she told stories. She'd tell these long stories. And I think she still does the storytelling style. She does a lot of like family observational stuff, but I love when she tells a long story, and I've kind of adopted that as well in my shows. So those are kind of the 3. Random Irish comedian, Rod Quantock, and Fiona O'Loughlin.
Great South Australian. I've interviewed her before. She's a rip of, definitely. So yeah. And going back to, younger years as well, you've studied psychology, so you're a very smart man.
I didn't. I only scraped by.
Don't sell yourself
You
short.
don't know if I passed.
Do you use much of your psychology materials as part of your shows as well?
I think I use the education in the sense of how I organized my writing, how I organize my life, and also just how rigorous I am in preparing a show. If you've done research, you have to check things and double check things and have references and make sure things are true and accurate. And in my stand-up, I actually quite like doing that as well. I'll, even contact friends who are scientists going, is this accurate the way I'm making this joke? So it's just a strange commitment to science and academia that I have. So I think that type of brain has affected how I do comedy. But I don't necessarily do jokes about science, but I think the approach has changed the way that I view my shows.
And obviously comedy is your main focus at the moment. Any thoughts in the future of using the psychology, to get other jobs, or?
I have been offered a PhD and I don't want to be poor again.
Yeah.
Considering having kids soon and I think doing a PhD during that time would be very draining. So I would consider it, because I could do that stuff and actually be, a counselor or a full-time psychologist. But my friends do that, and I don't envy their life or their lifestyle. I really enjoy being a creative, and I'm sure I can apply that background to some way to further projects, perhaps a book, a comedy book about psychology, maybe. That would be quite fun. But I always thought of doing a book about the psychology of writing a joke. I kind of have a draft in my laptop folder somewhere. So I do have that interest, but it's really just fun to perform, especially after the last couple of years. It's just a joy to be on stage again. So I don't really want to coop myself up in an office studying psych again for a while. We'll see. I might get weary of the road again.
And you wrote a book, speaking of books, you wrote a book called One Night Stand.
I did, yeah.
Interesting title.
Yeah.
What was this one all about?
It's about a comedian who has a one-night stand and is told he's going to be a father. And it's based on a comedian I know. It happened to me about 6 years ago. Had a fling, and 4 weeks later I get a message saying, hey, I'm pregnant. You're the dad. And I thought, oh, well, of course I'll be there. And then a day later, I got another message saying, actually, it might be another guy. I'm not sure if it's you or him. So it was 9 months of trying to work out if it was me or him until we could get the paternity test when the kid was born.
Oh, my goodness.
So I wrote a fiction book, which is based on that, what happened to me. I obviously changed the names and places, and but the emotional journey is still the same. And it was really a big growing up period of me just going, hey, I've got to start thinking of others now, because particularly being a comedian is a very self-focused career. What am I doing? What's happening in my career? What commitments do I have? I've got to travel. I've got to focus on building the career type thing, being away, all that sort of stuff. So when a child is on the cards, then all of a sudden, hey, I'm not the most important person in my life anymore. This kid is. So I was gearing up to be a dad, and that was quite a massive life change. And so the book talks about, that emotional and mental change, and then, and how it all unfolded. I'm trying not to give away the secret.
And where can we buy this book? Because it sounds fantastic.
Yeah. It's really it's really a lot of my raw emotion in it, and jokes along the way. So that background in writing for the Tonight Show, able to keep it funny even though it was quite a turbulent time.
Yeah. And is it just available on your website, or? It's
available in bookstores, online. So, you can just go to simontaylorfunnyboy.com, and there's a link to wherever you can get it online.
Beautiful. And speaking of that, you've just given it a plug. Your shows, that's how sort of people can book as well for Adelaide, Melbourne and Queensland going forward this year?
Yeah, I just, get on my mailing list, and I'll very, very occasionally let you know what I'm doing. So Simon Taylor Funny Boy is my website, and I have I have tour all around the country, and books out, and an audio book coming out of One Night Stand. So I got stuff, putting stuff out there.
Love it. I'm definitely going to buy that one. That sounds like a ripper. Before I let you go, I can't leave this conversation without talking about the pies, Collingwood.
Oh, yes. I'm a bit out of touch, to be honest, because I grew up with it. As I was saying, my dad is a one-eyed Collingwood supporter, so it was a religion growing up. And I think the moment that it was clear to Dad that I wasn't as avid a supporter as he is, was when I was born, he signed me up for an MCC membership. So you get to go to the Melbourne Cricket Ground whenever you're a member. You get in the members section, you have priority tickets. And when I hit 18, that's when the membership came through, just because it took 18 years for me to go up. It's a huge list, you know. And so when I hit 18, I have this membership now that costs $300 a year or whatever. Yeah. And my dad's like, you can go to games whenever you want. You get the members section. You have access to the grand finals, you know, priority tickets. And I paid for it for, I think, 2 years, but I think I went to one game. And so I had to begrudgingly, very sadly, tell my dad, I had to come out as an entertainer and a lover of the arts. I'm like, I'm sorry, Dad, I'm not going to pay $300 a year for this MCC membership. I'm going to have to give it up. And so, yes, as much as I was indoctrinated into the world of Collingwood, I moved into the arts. So I'll go see, 50 shows during a festival, but I haven't seen a game in a long time.
Oh, that's fair enough. Well, Simon Taylor, thanks so much for joining us on Comedy Legends with Bevo. The show, epic. Can't wait to see it at the Adelaide Fringe, and as I mentioned previously as well, Gold Coast, Melbourne Comedy Festival, and other places this year, I presume, as well?
Yeah, I'll be hitting everywhere I can. Sydney in May and Perth when they let me in.
Yes. Thanks again, mate. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it, Bevo.